Coaches, are you ready to revolutionize your game preparation? For the past 5 seasons, coaches across the nation have been using the ultimate scout team game changer, the Coachpad. Imagine this: no more scrambling on weekends to prep scout cards, no more fumbling with paper and binders. Whether you're drawing your cards digitally with a computer program or sketching them by hand, the Coachpad is your all in one solution. Picture yourself on the practice field effortlessly managing your scout team or standing on the sidelines during game day, syncing adjustments from the press box to your coaches on the sideline and back. With the coach pad, you can clearly see your scout cards even in the brightest sunlight. No more squinting or dealing with the wind blowing clear vinyl sleeves everywhere. This offseason, take your coaching to the next level. Get your coach pad today at thecoachpad.com and gear up for a winning season ahead.
Welcome back to our episode of the Gap Down Bagger podcast. Our guest today is Coach Grant Chiasson. Close, yeah, there you go. So,
That's good. Sounds good enough.
He's the offensive coordinator at Edward Douglas Catholic High School. I'm not going to butcher it like John Gruden did, as much as I want to, just to be a pun at this point, but I'm not.
The big Ed.
Yeah, God, it's so bad, but God bless him. Before we get started, Coach, how did you end up as the OC at? I want to do it now, but I'm not at Edward Douglas Catholic High School.
Yeah, so I'm an alumni here, number one. So when I was here back in 09, 2010, we ran Flexbone, and I thought I was, the cool Flexbone quarterback that's going to prove that he's the next Drew Brees. So I went run spread in college at Northwestern State and failed miserably, I should say. And when I graduated, I came back, and my head coach was coaching the junior high team. So he said, "Why don't you come be my OC?" So I got back into it at the junior high level for a year, some JV football the next year, and then he took over as head coach again of varsity. And he said, "Look, you're probably not ready to be the OC, but uh, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make you that anyway, and throw you into the fire and let you figure it out." So I'm thankful now, but at the time it was like unbelievable, where you think you have it all figured out, and then as soon as the game starts, you're like, "Oh my gosh, what have I done?" And it just kind of evolved from there. And once I got the coaching bug, that was that. So now I'm in or just finished my 6th year calling plays for varsity, and we've definitely simplified things to a certain extent, but we've also thrown in a lot of wrinkles that really give people headaches. You just combine that with the discipline of our guys and their ability to soak up whatever we throw at them. We've been really hard to stop, so we take a lot of pride in that.
Well, I mean, like I said, again, if you are a wing tee or a triple flexbone lover, I mean, watching your offense was a beautiful thing to do. Like I said, there's plenty of film between YouTube and then watching huddle highlights. Like I said, you were highly recommended to me by another coach, I think on Facebook, because he's talking to me about option coaches. And like I said, I started watching some of your stuff and marrying buck sweep and the flexbone and then split back stuff. I mean, y'all do a great job, but like, let's start with that. Like, how have you been able to blend some wing tee concepts? And I use that very gently there because I mean, buck sweep is like slash pin and pull, depending on which one you run, has become like a universal thing in a lot of offenses. And then the flexbone, because again, when you look at the flexbone, it's historically not a true gap scheme slash buck sweep thing. So how have you been able to marry kind of those things and still have enough time for everything that you do?
Yeah. So we kind of took the most important ones that are most difficult to stop. And when I say most difficult to stop, it's just based on results. I mean, we look at, running buck sweep, and, is it worth our time to have a buck sweep drill every day? And, once we put it on paper and see the data after a season, it's like, man, we're going 7, 8 yards a carry for buck sweep, and we've mirrored it on our same formation of inside veer. So we said, look, we got to carry it. It is what it is. It's another way to get the slots the ball. It's a way to get a physical downhill play. So Edie White historically was a long time wing T school. So we kind of always had those principles within the offense. Just your buck sweep, your down, your ISO, your toss counter, wing counter. So doing those things, having them in our background definitely helped. But at the same time, when the O line is kind of controlling your destiny, we knew that we can split practice up into option versus non-option runs, and that really allowed us to, kind of piggyback off of the two different types. The split back came in from, watching a lot of John Curtis Christian. They've got 28, 29 state championships right here in New Orleans, and everything they do is on YouTube. So really started following those guys and seeing that a lot of their schemes were the same as ours up front. So it really just became a backfield deal to where we would just put two fullbacks and eliminate the slot backs, to where we just had a bigger body, back there, and short yardage type things, and that kind of just evolved into more split back veer, more of the flexbone, the dive, and then of course, the buck sweep. I'll never forget after one of our district games, we had just started running buck sweep, kind of getting really good at it again, probably 2021, 22. And the head coach is a good friend of mine. He came up to me after, and he's a D coordinator for a long time. And he said, this is not fair. I said, what you mean, man? He said, you cannot run veer and buck sweep. That's just not fair. That's against the rules. We have no idea what's coming. Then you started changing the snap count. He said, that is just, you can't do that when you play us anymore. And, he was joking. We were laughing about it. But I told that to our head coach, and he said, all right, we're definitely going to run veer and buck sweep as much as we can. So here we are, and it's been working out really well.
Yeah, no, like again, I told you before we came on, like I have this weird love obsession with split back veer. Like I dove into it a little bit last year before I stepped down as a head coach for some family reasons, and um, like I said, I talked to a couple guys in Louisiana, and then obviously watched a lot of John Curtis because John Curtis, obviously, I mean, when you win 20 whatever state titles or whatever it is at this point, like, I mean, it's ridiculous. But then you like also because I'm a history buff, so like reading about the wishbone and then watching videos on the Houston split back veer, like it's a very they're still very dynamic offenses because they really didn't die because of people that adjusted to them. It's just and spread offenses and just some other changes and some rules kind of push people toward that. Like, what was the again? You mentioned why I had the wing T stuff, but drove you in the split back direction as well? Because again, when you look at time for practice, you got to balance everything. And yes, it's you're still running theoretically the same plays, but you got to get the backfield footwork right, depth right, timing right. I mean, and then you're also doing now different snap counts, so you got to make sure that stuff's crisp. Like again, it's a lot to balance. So, what drove you to add the split back stuff um, instead of say something else or just leave it as is?
Yeah, it was kind of just a way of, with our Flexbone, it's all about the motion. So you get teams committing to motion, you see who's playing what, how they're playing it. So, essentially when we would run our, let's say, Flexbone inside veer, we'd run the toss, and then, safeties are flying down, we're getting too many guys on the perimeter. You run your counter game, and then once our counter game kind of slowed down, whether that be counter ISO, whether that we almost count our bootleg game as counter, to where we're at least getting that heavy motion flow. You know, if they're being disciplined and getting numbers to the point of attack, then the motion it kind of just goes against itself. It kind of harms its own self. So the split back gave us a way to run our offense up front, wrinkle in the backfield, but also eliminate motion completely, but still have option game. All of a sudden we're hitting, zone dive, zone dive, and then boom, quarterback's pulling the ball and he's running down the sideline by himself 40 yards. that is when we knew there was kind of a light bulb situation where we said, okay, we can probably mix in just enough of a little of each to get away from teams attacking motion all the time. But also, we can go too tight, and now you don't even know where we're running because we're not giving anything away from it. And like you said, with the snap count, I mean, we can go on down, we can freeze them, we can go on two, and that allows us to use a lot of the non-option runs too, to where with Curtis, they're running cutback. Their counter game is cutback, where it basically hits between both A gaps, and we put that in right away. I said, I don't care if we run option game out of split back, we're going to have this cutback scenario out because there's too many teams that are playing a 6-1 box that they're just absolutely gashing, and it's nothing intricate about it. But I just said we have to have something that hits in the A gap that, also kind of a relief for our quarterback if he's kind of getting a situation, younger guy that isn't handling the reads as well. We've got a safe play for him that still brings guys over the top, scraping backers, scraping safeties, and it's just worked out really well for us. So we'll continue to do it. And it also allows us to have a 7-man protection at any time. We'll keep the backs in. We'll sprint out to the twin side. We'll run play action, go 3-man route. And it really works out for us.
Yeah. Like I said, that's, again, weird love affair of mine just with it. It's just, and to your point, that cutback play is like when I was studying him last year. I
mean, just untouched. It blows my mind. You've got a six-man, 6-1 box, and you were just going untouched, like guys looking for defenders, and that always just blew my mind. And so once you kind of get the inside scoop on how they run it and when they do it, it's pretty lethal.
It's amazing to me that he is not, like I said, he had that video series back in the late 90s, early 2000s, but he has not done anything since in terms of publicly. Like he'll talk, I know he talks to people privately, but he will not. It's interesting. So yeah,
it's impressive. So
it's that amount of success is impressive. Like
I said, just having a resource there, it's not like we have to go find a clinic on YouTube to learn it. I mean, it is right there. New Orleans, we know the coaches, we know they're one of the best quarterbacks they've ever had, Colin Guggenheim. He's actually the Nickel State running back coach now, so he'll come stop by time to time, do his recruiting, and come help out a little bit. And so now we've got quarterback perspective on it, how he is, doing his footwork, how he's doing his count in the system, and you got to have somebody on the inside that can kind of teach it to you. So very thankful for that too.
Yep. And as we're talking right now, Navy is about to score in Oklahoma and take the lead, but that's a whole nother thing. Now you mentioned a little bit already, and with snap counts and stuff, but I also want to ask you about tempo because talking to a couple people, there's a touchdown. I looked up right at the right time. Just
there you go.
But you talked about adding temp. Like they talked to me about you also do tempo with some of the stuff you do. Can you kind of expand on kind of what you do snap count and tempo wise and inside what you guys?
Definitely. So 2021, we go to the state championship. We were all huddle, completely huddle. The quarterback, if he counted his steps, he must have ran 10 marathons coming back to me at the sideline, get the play, back to the huddle. We tried the wristbands. I personally did not like the wristband. I liked it as a player. I didn't like it as a coach because I was limited to what I could do. So he came and got the play from me and then ran back to the huddle, got it in. And it worked well. We were 10-1, state runner-up, but we got into a 2-minute situation in the state championship where we drove the ball pretty well, but it wasn't fast enough. And we kind of just had no 2-minute tempo at all. Just kind of like yelling like maniacs from the sideline. So that offseason, spring of 22, we said, okay, we're going no huddle, at least just to have a package with it. But we knew that we had to go all in because you can't just say, all right, we're going to do no huddle sometimes, huddles. Like if you're learning it, you have to commit completely. And head coach, he said, look, I just want to go no huddle for practice purposes. I want to save time at practice to where we signal a play and we run it right now. I said, Coach, you got it. Let's go. So we we scripted and signaled every formation, every run play, every motion, every shift, every pass play. We labeled things certain ways. We took some verbiage out. We started doing field boundary formations. So, like if we go trips and we're right hash, it's automatically trips left. Okay. So if we were in over, we go our over formation, left hash, X and Y are, true split ends receivers knew we're going to the field. So that helped with the verbiage. So now we could go over six, and all of a sudden we're running inside veer to the field, and that helped our guys out a lot. So once we dove into it, I mean, our offense kind of just exploded in terms of points per game, plays. I think we averaged the year before in the state year we went 24, 25 points a game. Just that slow grinding it out, holding you to 7. We're scoring 24, 25. That year we were outscoring you no matter what you were putting up. So we started, I think we ended up finishing the season with 39 points a game. And then we carried it over because all the starters came back into their senior year. We carried that verbiage over. And I think last year we were averaging 48 points a game, like something just stupid, and went undefeated regular season. So we're now back full circle to where sometimes we go a little too fast and give these high quality, high scoring offenses too much time back to score points on the field. So we're back to slowing it down. So we'll have our 2 minute situation at all times. The fast, get on the ball, get the formation, run the play. But we're going to go back to huddling probably every other series, different times, different first downs, getting a new personnel, just because we know what works well for us at this point. We want to keep more teams off the field, that kind of true option play, but we still want to have the capability of moving fast. And I mean, as you could about imagine, if like you said, you love some option football. I mean, when you drive 60 yards, those defenses are gashed because
Mhm.
we're just coming off the ball, off the ball, off the ball. So doing it at a high level, high speed, man, guys were just we'd see a lot of the tap on the head from the D line in the red zone, and we would just capitalize every time. So it became an evolution, but now we're at a good mix of it, and we probably won't go back to either one. So it'll just be a healthy mix.
Well, I mean, like the year we were good at Marion Elgin, we were able to go tempo with our double wing, our center double wing,
Yep.
and like we were the tempo team in our league because I mean we could just go, and people already struggle to get across from a double wing power super power team, and then you start adding speed to it, and like I said, people get aligned wrong, get tired. So, like I
Yeah.
said, I think it's a great resource. I don't like I said, to be honest, I don't know if it's a helpful thing to a shotgun offense as much as it is to
Right.
our center offense, especially ones that's running either like double tights or running like some
Right.
option concepts. So,
Right. And Scott Dietrich was at Parkview Baptist for years. They had a great run. They had 5 state championships. He became like a pillar of option football in the South. Did a lot of clinics, did a lot of work, especially in that 2020 spring. So he had done a clinic specifically on 2 minute for an option game. He said nobody else does 2 minute talk about 2 minute drill and option game, so I'm gonna do it now. So the first thing he says, which my thought process was, oh, 2 minute, we have to get in a shotgun and go 2 by 2, which is just totally against our identity. So now we got guys running routes, running the mirrored smash concepts, because what else are we going to run? What else do people run? I don't know how this spread stuff works. And the first thing he did was say, don't get into shotgun in 2 minute. He said, pick up the tempo, get your signals in, have your plays, move fast, get out of bounds, and do what you do. And man, it was mind blowing. So we just took that philosophy and geared it towards our offense at all times. And man, it's been awesome. And it helped our defense too, because our defense never got to practice 2 minute drill. And that 2022 fall camp, I remember we finished practice every day with 2 minute drill. And it just helped us condition. It helped our defense. It helped us move fast as we wanted to. and man, we just never look back.
Now, I mean, one of the other things I want to ask you is I've been asking people this for a variety of reasons, but just also because I'm never happy with pregame ever. Like, just I don't think a lot of coaches are, to be honest. The more I talk to
I'm
people
not. I'm
about
not.
it, like it's either too long, too short. They'd rather do that. Like nobody's happy. Okay, let's just start there.
Yep.
But still, I'm still going to ask. Like, and every offense is a little different. Like how we did things when I was at Granville when we were borderline an air raid run and shoot team, and how we do it when I was working for a double wing head coach are two different worlds. Let's be honest. Like,
Yep.
I mean, my experience, the spread teams are the longer ones. Um,
Mhm.
Variety of reasons. But like, what does pregame offensively look like for you from like start to kickoff? Like, how do you structure that for you and your coaches?
Yeah. So we definitely want to make sure that we, activate that central nervous system with the muscle memory. So our specialties, which are kicker, punter, snappers, and centers, and all offensive skill personnel, so Qs, fullbacks, slots, and receivers, they'll come out, game time at 7, so they'll come out at 6 o'clock, right at it. We do a band warm up with our trainers in our weight room, and if it's away, we'll do it in the opposing gym. So they're loose. I mean, they're rocking and rolling. When we get out, I'll take quarterbacks, centers, fullbacks, and we hit snaps and we hit meshes. Okay, so we'll hit our midline, we'll hit inside veer, outside veer, and then we'll finish up with a couple shotgun snaps just to get the centers all loose. Just all basic stuff just to get back in a little rhythm. While we do that, our slot backs will start their receiving game with the receivers. Okay, so it's kind of reverse engineered to where Q's, fullback, centers, they start with run game. Slots, receivers start with pass game. From there, we get our quick warm up, and then we go to the middle of the field. We hit our routes on air. And that used to be routes that naturally will never run in a game, running curls and comebacks and digs and fades. And I said, guys, we run hitches, we run quick outs, we run stick routes, and we run comebacks. That's what we're going to run in pregame, which that, of course, minimized to, I think we do maybe hitch, slant, and come back, and then I'll let the quarterback throw a couple go routes just to get guys, running down the sideline a little bit. And from there, we break back in, come back out as a team, kind of we do have like this tunnel kind of pregame deal. And once we break for team, the quarterbacks will stick with the just kind of getting loose one more time. And then our slot backs go into the run polish. And for run polish is kind of just going through all of our run game mechanics. They'll go through their pitches, they'll go through mid triple, they'll go through some of the jet motions. Receivers will hit some stalk blocks, and that brings us to team right at about 6:45 ish. And when I say we hit maybe 4 plays in team, like it's really just tempo, first O, second O, back to back to back to back. And as soon as I look over and see defense break it down after they do their pursuit for about 3-4 minutes, we're all in the end zone breaking it down. They're getting ready for their run out. So it's not far from your basics of what a lot of teams do, but at the same time, I'm a big central nervous system memory, procedural memory guy. So I just want them to have that quick basic movement down as we move into it. And like I said, it's not perfect. Like you said, whose is, but at the same time, it's been working well enough for us to where we roll with it. So yeah, it's basic, but it gets the job done.
Yeah, I got 3 more questions for you. So one is
Okay.
something you brought up, I think before we went on that I told you I was going to ask you about, like you said just let me run outside veer from the 5. Why do you just want to run outside veer from the 5 and just say, like, I mean you made the pun, so I want to ask about it.
So we were talking about because I begged my head coach to let me go for 2, just because I'm scared to death for it to be the first time we go for 2 was like in a semifinal game to win the game. So I'm like, am I crazy for thinking that we have to go for two at least 2 or 3 times just for the hell of it? And all the assistant coaches are like, yeah, we got to go for two. So he finally gives me the okay. And ironically, one of my best friends in college, he played at Parkview Baptist, big Flexbone team in Baton Rouge that Scott was at, the OC for, and the most ridiculous stat. Everybody goes bragging about what they've done, who's who, and he's like, well, I mean, I'm just letting you know, I hold the record for most 2-point conversions scored at Parkview. I'm like, first of all, who keeps track of that? Secondly, what, why, and what were you running? He said, oh, outside veer, no doubt. He said they'd never stop outside veer. I said they'd never stopped outside veer for a 2-point play. He said no. So that was the first time. And that was before I even knew I'd be a coach. That was just me in college. So here I am, 5 years later, thinking, man, we're back running option at ED White, and man, why is that such a good 2-point play? And man, it's just you have all your gaps covered, and then now you're asking a guy who's particularly probably an outside linebacker, flat defender, to tackle your fullback behind the tight end, and that's just something he's not used to doing. And then teams say, well, hold up now. We're just going to go in there and put another defensive end out there. And they say, okay, so now we've got another defensive end in place of our nickel. So all he needs to do is go tackle the fullback now. Guess who's walking in the end zone for a 2-point conversion? The quarterback. So it never fails. Like looking back, I say, this was kind of a joke that just stayed in the back of my mind. And now I'm thinking, man, every time we run outside veer to inside the 5 and everybody's all nervous, we got to take dive, pitch, and all these things. It's hard to stop. And one of the guys who I had mentioned earlier, Colin Guggenheim, he was the Curtis quarterback, and he said, we're not. That ball is never leaving the line of scrimmage when we're inside the hot zone, 10 yards and in. So what do you mean by that? He said, we're not pitching it, we're not running counters, we're not tossing it. He said, when we attack that ball, we are meshing on that line of scrimmage, and we're attacking you right now, making you make a decision. And sure enough, man, once you live by that philosophy, it's hard to stop on the goal line. And then you throw in the zone dive stuff that, Harding is making a career out of, and then the academy's all made. Once we throw in the zone dive where it's an automatic give and it looks like option, it's tough. It's really, really tough to stop. So I can't get away from it. We were just talking earlier. If an NFL team figured this out, how to go for this on 4th and 1 and do it the right way, they would for sure have a little bit better percentage than that 6-yard back shotgun inside zone on 4th and 1. I can promise you that.
Now with that, like I said, because I talked to college option coaches, and outside veer is die-ish. I'll phrase it that way. Like, I mean, we a couple of the people we talked about before we went on air, they don't really run much outside veer. Some years they don't even install it anymore, just because it's inside veer. It's mid triples, mid doubles, kind of the same way. Mid doubles kind of died to a point. I mean, college and high schools have made mid triple an abusive play. But like, one, why do you still run outside veer? What makes you still want to run it? And then are you running it both out of the Flexbone and the split back stuff, or just out of one?
Yeah, so you have to run it to a 3-man surface. So I like when the Flexbone version will run it to a tackle over. It definitely gives our scheme away, what we're trying to do, but when we start shifting to tight end, that helps the situation. So we always run it unbalanced to the split end, but out of the which, by the way, the mesh is hard to teach. Like I tell the quarterbacks, out of that Flexbone look, you really have to almost feel like you're pulling something in your groin or your hamstring to get to that mesh point, because you have to get the ball inside the leg of the play side tackle. So when they do that, it becomes a little bit more difficult. With the split back, we found that the mesh became so much easier because they literally just sprint to that mesh point. They take the ball, they take the snap, and they sprint to the inside leg of the tackle. That mesh was so much cleaner. Now, the read becomes a little bit more difficult because you have to read as you're pushing down the line of scrimmage. But at the same time, every gap is covered. I mean, with inside veer, if you get penetration from a dominant nose guard, your inside veer game is done. Your midline game is done. Your mid triple game is done. You better handle that nose guard. But if that nose guard is tearing you up, he's not making the play in the C gap. He's giving you just enough time to get outside of the tight end and hit it off of that C gap. So that's why we have to carry it, just because we can bang our heads all day on a nose guard who's 325 pounds, but at the same time, we knew that, you know, off tackle, off tackle, off tackle, eventually a guy is going to be asked to do something he's not used to doing. For example, an inside veer against a 50, that end is playing quarterback all game. He's running 45 degrees upfield and he's not letting the quarterback run the ball and pull the ball. But as soon as we put a three-man surface down, that same player who's told to be a quarterback guy becomes the dive key. And now all of a sudden, what's he going to do? And usually it ends up with our fullback running religiously down the sideline or down the middle of the field. So when you start changing assignments for the defense that they're not used to, things get very slippery quickly for them. So for us, it just has to happen. Midline double, midline triple, inside veer, outside veer, 4 option plays. That's our game. And of course, speed variations off of it.
Okay. Now, I know there's one other thing you didn't want to forget, or I want to bring up the mental performance coaching. Do you want to talk about that real quick? Because I know you brought that up before. So before we finish.
Yeah, absolutely. So like a lot of coaches, it probably got to year 5 or 6 where the mental side of things for me as a coach just absolutely wore me down. I mean, it was to the point where I'm like freaking out. I'm not eating. I'm stressing, trying to just calm myself down before games. And, you know, we're in a situation where we're scoring 48 points a game, 49 points a game. And I'm like freaking out, man, undefeated. Like, you know, I'm in the captain's chair, you know, and I'm like, I've just completely just lost it, you know. So I started doing my own research, you know, how can I find this balance between, you know, performing as a coach, but also mentally staying equipped to handle the grind of the season. So I found this mental performance training. And of course, I have my own coach. I look to a lot of the big figures, you know, Brian Kane, Peak Performance, turned to Bill Bessick, big sports site guy in Europe. And man, it was like eye opening for me, you know, just handling my anxiety, being able to sleep, developing routines, having confidence, just being able to withstand that pressure that, you know, you put on yourself. So once I got that down for me, I said, okay, I'm a coach by trade, so I should be teaching this to my guys. So we dove all in this season, man, and just we started with the motivation. We started with just the daily habits, the routines, the confidence building, the one game at a time. You know, it's all these cliche, you know, things that you say as a coach, but we practiced it every single day. We did the visualization. I'd have them in the locker room with the lights turned off, and we're visualizing different scenarios, different things happening in a rivalry game, how the field is, what it smells like in the Superdome for the state championship. I mean, you name it, we were diving into all of it. And it really, really, really helped. You know, our guys were totally bought in. You know, we adopted the victim versus fighter mindset, and they really, really ran with that. You know, that ended up them calling me a victim half the time when I would complain about something, but you know, it shut me up. And so with that, you know, I've worked with our guys in our school, and I've started my own private practice, Grant Chiasson Mental Performance. I'm on Instagram, all the platforms, Twitter, very easy to find. I'm sure you'll put a link to that, and um, just been really, really, really rewarding for me, not only to take over my confidence, my anxiety, but also to teach it and coach it. Because you know the mental side, when I survey my guys, it's astounding how much of them are struggling mentally, and you know they haven't really reached that point of you know needing to see professional help from a therapist or anything, but at the same time they need somebody to talk to, and taking a lot of pride in being that guy for a lot of students in the school. So Definitely hit me up if you want to talk or chat, and I'll be more than happy to get you on the right track.
Well, coaches, give the man a follow on the Twitter or X or whatever the 9,000 name that Elon has switched it to this week. Logo. Two, I'll put the link to his Instagram in the bio. Reach out. You can also check that out and reach out there. If you want to reach out to them about either the mental performance coaching or any option related stuff, all that stuff will be in the bio. Don't hesitate to reach out to Coach. Like, share, subscribe, all that algorithm crap that YouTube wants to do so people find videos and whatever. You see how excited I am about doing that, Coach. And then check out our sponsor, Coachpad, because they have been supporting us for 3 or 4 years. I think I can't keep track. I'm bad with that stuff, but check them out. They've done a really good job of supporting us and supporting a lot of coaches and aspects. So check them out. Otherwise, that's another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast.